Namaste and welcome to Interlude Part 4, where we'll be focusing on embracing fear. Thank you so much, Dr. Deena. You've been coming every week and helping people understand about life and business, and you're giving easy templates they can apply and where the result is guaranteed. Over to you.
Hello, hello. I am excited about this particular topic. Why? Is because many people deal with fear every day, and they allow the fears that they have to actually halt and stop their progress and their growth. And so, talking about fear is actually the first step in being able to overcome your fears. So, I want to share a quick quote with you and then speak into that. And when I think about fear, and I've heard people say it's false evidence appearing real, that you can, hide from your fears. But here's what I want you to understand. All those things may be true, but I want you to know that the fear we do not face become our limits. And if you want to live a limitless life, then you're going to have to face your fears. So what is fear? Where does it come from? Well, I don't have all those answers to your questions in regards to your fears, but guess who does? You have the answers. And so you have to actually sit in your fear and begin to face it. So many times we face fear when there's change, when there's uncertainty, when we're dealing with something that's new to us, that may be a little bit confusing for us, then there's a reaction within us. And it's really about your mindset. What is your mind telling your brain that's impacting your body in reaction to the actual fear? And so in order to really begin to limit and overcome those fears that you face, you have to begin to manage your mind. You absolutely do. Because what fears are a state of mind. And people say, well, I don't want to be afraid. Well, stop being afraid. Simple. Well, it sounds simple, but it really isn't, because it takes time for you to begin to develop the habits of mind for you to be able to deal with it. So how do I face fear when fear comes? Because here's what I want to tell you. Fear is real. Fear is real in my life. However, fear doesn't get a vote. I'm going to say that again. Fear is real. I face fears every day, but it doesn't get a vote. So what I've learned and what I teach my clients to do is to begin to break down the fear, begin to break down the moment, begin to break down the mindset surrounding that particular fear. And again, as I always tell you, what do you have to do is you have to shift in that moment, right? You have to move from where you are to where you want to be. Do you want to be afraid? And if you do not want to be afraid, then you must take intentional action. Okay, so what do? How do you do it? Right? That's what you're like, woman, get to the point. Here's the thing, is that we often don't want to face the fear. And so we hide. And when we hide, it begins to build and take over and limit our next steps. It actually can immobilize us. It can create high anxiety with that. And so from a clinical standpoint, if you're feeling high anxiety due to fear, what you really actually have to do in a clinical standpoint and in a realistic action is that you have to make the unconscious conscious. Because fear is there to help us. There's your spoiler alert. Fear. So how does it help? You're saying, well, if you are in the forest and you're walking and you see a grizzly bear, then that fear kicks in that there's a grizzly bear that literally might have a baby cub. So we know that that baby cub is going to create that grizzly mama bear action, and that they have the potential, the capacity to rip us apart, right? Especially if we have nothing to defend ourselves. So fear, reaction, run, right? There's something that is very scary to me. I run. There's fear, right? So fear is not something that we need to be afraid of, pun intended. Fear is something that we have to face. So when you're facing a bear, and I tell people, I move in the direction of my fear unless there's a bear on the other side. And metaphorically speaking, is there something that's truly dangerous, that is tangible and seeable, that's dangerous, I know that that fear signal is for me to begin to move in a different direction, to make a pivot. But when we're trapped in our mind with fear, that's another story. And we have to begin to unwrap that, to pull that apart and begin to face the fears that exist as parts of our mind. Because we are part and parcel to all the stories, all the experiences, everything that's made us who we are today. So, could it perhaps be that you're afraid of walking on stage? And I'll speak to something that many people, they'll tell me, many clients will say, I am terrified of speaking in public. And I'll say, why? They go, I don't know. I'm terrified of speaking in public. I say, okay, so let's unpack what's so scary about it. Can the people that are out there in the audience harm you? And I mean, realistically, no. Okay, so why are they so scary? Well, it's not the people. I said, okay, so let's move that out. It's not the people. All right, what's next? Is it something about the stage and the platform and being seen? Oh no, I don't mind being seen. Okay, let's move that out the way. So if it's not that, so we're going to begin to unpack, where is this fear coming from? Because you can make yourself afraid of something because you're unprepared. So I said, well, if you really know what you're talking about, are you afraid when you're on stage? Well, no, not really. Okay, there's a ding, ding, ding. If you are prepared for the situation, if you feel you're fully equipped for the opportunity, if you've taken every step possible and plausible to make sure that you had all the tools needed to move from where you are to where you want to be, would you still be afraid? And I said, well, no. I said, great. So now we can come up with an action plan. When you have to go speak and do a talk, etc., let's get you prepared. Okay. Now, there might be a little butterflies, and that's not what I'm speaking to, because even me, when I go to speak on stage, even me, when I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to come on this Tuesday and have a conversation with you, there's a little butterflies of excitement, but it's also going, okay, am I going to, what I need to say to them, is it going to come out so that they can receive it? But I've reframed it. It's not a fear what makes me not come on camera. It means, okay, why don't you prepare? Why don't you make sure that you have exactly what you want to say? You have your key points. And the more prepared I am, the more jazzed I am, and the less fear that I face. So that's in regards to actually taking action when we're talking about maybe going on stage, speaking in public, even meeting new people. You've got to get to the root of where that fear comes from. So I have a client who says, I'm very afraid of clowns. And this is a real thing. And to the point where when they are in a place, and how does this relate to an adult, a business individual? Well, it relates to them because their company actually put on an event and there were clowns there. And here's this person in a senior level position, and they were literally terrified, but they also were too afraid to tell anyone on their team that they were afraid. And so their behavior was very erratic, and people were very concerned by this leader's behavior. And so that fear was real. And when we began to unpack that fear, well, we got to the root of it is that when he was a young boy, about 4 or 5 years old, his older brother would terrorize him with clowns. And there was a movie out that had killer clowns. So can you imagine how traumatic a 3, 4, 5-year-old is who's being terrorized by clowns? There's a movie of killer clowns. You have a sibling and all their sibling love who is making you, even more so terrified of a clown. And that you bury that memory. You bury that moment because, see, your brain is working 365, 24/7. It never shuts off. You're constantly receiving images, impressions, verbiage, which is why it's very powerful about what you say. And I keep telling you that fear is about mind management. Okay. So as we begin to have the conversation, and so I said, okay, so now let's reframe the clowns. Let's revisit, let's face the clowns is that fear real? Absolutely. Is it part of an embedded tape? Absolutely. Can we begin to reframe it? And can we begin to rewrite that tape? Absolutely. But if he was never willing to face the fear and say, okay, what is it? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. And where does it come from? He would just keep walking around going, well, I don't know why I'm afraid. I don't know why I'm afraid. Well, guess what? Your subconscious knows why you're afraid. And so what you need to do in order to embrace fear is that you need to have a conversation with you. You need to make the unconscious conscious. And you need to make the shift. And remember, when we talk about shifts, we're talking about the S, self-awareness. Who am I today? What are all the parts that made me? What are my dreams? What are my hopes? Even what are my fears? And so one activity that I actually do with one of my client groups is that we talk about our dreams. And it would be remiss of me to speak about dreams and not speak about fear. Because many people do not act on their dreams because they are afraid. They're afraid that they're going to fail. And I ask the question, what are you most afraid of? I'm afraid to fail. Why? What is it about failure? See, we can't just leave it at I'm afraid to fail and that's why I just stop. Why are you afraid to fail? What does failure mean to you? What is causing the fear of failure? Is it what other people are going to say to you? Is it because you had a past incident that didn't work out? Is it because someone's going to harm you? What is it? So what we do, and you can do this right now, and when you're watching this, or if you watch this on the replay, is that you can make a list of your dreams, your hopes, and your desires. Since I do a lot with Future Cast and Future Shift about dreams, I'm going to have you start with a dream. What is your big, bold dream? I mean, that one that it even scares you to even speak it. Like you're like, ugh, I don't want to say anything. That dream, that one. What is it? And why are you afraid to tell people about it? Why? Why? So when you write it down, this is my dream. And then the very next column over, if you made like a T chart and add another leg on there, so you got like a 3 space. So you have your dream. What is my dream? And then I want you in the middle section to put, what are you afraid of? What's the fear that surrounds that dream? Are you feeling like you're not enough? Are you feeling that you're not fully equipped? Are you feeling like you don't have enough money? Are you feeling like you don't have enough support? Are you feeling like you don't have resources, knowledge? Where's the gap? Where is the gap? So you have your dreams, and then you have the fear. What is the fear? Write it down. When you make the unconscious conscious, we now can create a strategy to embrace it and to shift. Because here's another thing that you have to understand about fear. If you face the fear, okay, you face it, you embrace it, you acknowledge it, you can rise out of it. So I'm going to give you a new acronym for fear. Face it, embrace it, acknowledge it, and rise above it. When you do that, you can now create a plan of action. So you have your dream. You've written down what your fear is of that. I mean, be honest with yourself. This is for you. Write it down. And now you've written out what that fear is. And guess what your third piece is? What are the solutions? How am I going to move from where I am to where I want to be? How am I going to deal with by facing, embracing, acknowledging, and rising above this fear? What do I need to help with this gap? Is it a knowledge gap? Okay, let me get some knowledge. And make sure that you don't get so caught up in the knowledge that you don't take action on your dream. That's a whole nother session, okay? That we keep thinking we have to learn more and more and more and more before we actually move. Because here's the thing. If you make a mistake, if you fail, so to speak, guess what? That's part of innovation. That's a huge part of innovation. So if you begin to reframe the moments, if you begin to reframe the experience and not speak of it as, I have failed, wait a minute, that idea, it didn't work that way because there's a better way. Oh, wow. And I thought of it. This gave me an opportunity to see what didn't work. Now I can now take another step in order to get the next thing to work. Oh, wait, that didn't work? Wow, that means that there's still some culling in here. There's still some growth opportunity in here. So when you look at failure differently, it's going to create a different reaction in you when you consider fear. Because that has been the number one reason that many of my clients, many individuals I've worked with, many organizations I've worked with, they said, our people have a fear of failing. Is it the repercussions? So if you're in a leadership position, if your people are so afraid to fail that they don't take action, it is your responsibility as the leader to change that. The same way, if you don't move on your dreams, hopes, desires, and visions, it is your responsibility to change that by embracing fear, reframing it, acknowledging it, not hiding from it. Because here's the thing, your fear can work for you or it can work against you. It is your choice. So if I'm afraid of getting in front of the camera and sounding like, a complete idiot, okay, so guess what I better do? That's my fear. So what can I do to prepare? Let me make some notes. 2, let me cover the topic. Let me kind of dig a little bit deeper. Let me prepare. Maybe make sure I look my best. Maybe I can wear my Shift Factor lip gloss, because why? It gives me that extra energy and that oomph to feel like I can make a really powerful presence. What I didn't hear is me saying the fear is going to cause me to be immobile and not do, not act, not move. So your takeaway for today on how you can begin to embrace fear is your new acronym for fear. Face it head on. What is it? Where does it come from? Peel back the layers. Ask yourself some tough questions about it. Embrace it, realizing that the fear is there. It has a reason. It has a root. Get to the root of it. Is it something that you've experienced early on in life? Or is it something, maybe the fear of the unknown? And instead of saying to yourself, because it's very powerful what you say to yourself, instead of saying, what if it doesn't work? How about you focus on, man, what if it works? Changes the energy in the moment. And acknowledge the fear. Don't say, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid. And then you're kind of bumbling around that, because that's not honest. That's not even authentic. You can acknowledge the fear, you just don't have to give it a vote. So if you face it, you embrace it, you acknowledge it, you will actually be able to rise above your fear and take action on your dreams and live your very best life today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Deena. Much needed, especially in this time of crisis where people are venturing into new business or whichever area they want to start. This is something which energy booster, which is jumpstart their approach. This is much needed, and thank you so much for explaining it with your signature type of acronyms where people can connect and relate. And thank you so much. Also, one more thing, the way you explained, where people, when you said about the dream, when you told about uh, don't look outside, look inside, and it is you who has to work on it yourself in order to come out of whichever fear we are in. And if you go deeper, you'll understand probably at your child age. I know when you're a child or when you're at a young age, or when somebody at that point of time did something and that actually helped you develop something against that, and that fear can be immediately removed if you are conscious about it. Thank you. We'll see you the next week. And I'm following all your posts in regard with the future shift from Srishti TV. Wherever we can support, we'll be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Miss Dr. Deena. Every week she comes in and then she gives basic templates for people can apply in their life or in business, personal or professional, for them to be successful. This week she focused on fear. All her programs are available in YouTube, srishti.tv. You can very well check, and they are really useful for personal life and for professional life. Thank you.